Chapter 5. Crazy, Sexy, Cool. After we got off tour for Ooh on the TLC tip, we were living large. It was the first time the three of us had a break since the album exploded on the scene, and we were just young and famous enough to get into trouble and experience some things. As I was resting and getting my personal life back in order, Lisa moved herself into her boyfriend Andre Risen's massive house. Andre played for the Atlanta Falcons, and they started dating just after our album had dropped. The relationship was full of love and drama. By the summer of 1994, Lisa had already filed one assault charge against Andre, which he denied. None of it was going anywhere good. They had this weird love-hate thing going on, like, I can talk about you, but no one else can. On June 9th, 1994, I got a call from Pebbles. Lisa had been arrested for burning Andre's house down. The night before, Lisa had been pissed at Andre. She said, I'm going to get my girls and we're going to get dressed up and we're going to stay out later than him. But when Lisa came home, Andre and his boys were still out clubbing, and she was mad. When she came home that night, Lisa saw stacks of brand new sneakers in the house, with none for her. Lisa took all those Nikes into his bathroom, threw them in the bathtub, and lit them on fire. But here's the thing. This wasn't the only time she started a fire. The first time, it had been a bunch of stuffed animals in the bathtub, and Andre had replaced the original bathtub with a plexiglass one. So when she lit the sneakers, the whole thing was like whoosh, and the entire house went up in flames. Meanwhile, Lisa told me she had written a letter in red lipstick around the whole room, literally from the top of the wall to the floor. That was my girl. She always had the best ways of getting back at people. That letter burnt up with the rest of the house, so only Lisa knew what it said. She was one of the funniest people I ever met. When I got the call that she'd been arrested, I wasn't that surprised. I'd gotten these kind of calls before. Tionne, can you come get Lisa? She's running naked in the woods. I don't know what it was about Lisa, but she loved to get butt naked when she was drunk. So I'd go haul her out of the woods and make her put a blanket or her clothes back on. For some reason, Lisa always listened to me. Before I'd get there, she'd be yelling and swinging at people, but if I said, Lisa, you butt naked in the woods? Come in the house. She replied, okay, like a sweet big-eyed baby girl. I loved her eyes. They always got me. The morning of the fire, when I got the call, I asked, is she okay? Yes, she was fine. She'd run out of the house after setting the fire and fought with Andre in the driveway. She was bruised up, and some of her nails were coming off. She hadn't bashed in the car windows, even though she was blamed for it. Andre's friends were mad at Lisa for starting the fire, so they'd bashed in her car windows to get even. The news blamed everything on Lisa. Ultimately, though, a house is just a house. It's a horrible thing to lose, but with insurance and those football funds, Andre would bounce back. I hope he didn't lose anything sentimental. Well, where is she? I asked. She was at a hotel. Me and Chili went there to sit with her until the label and the lawyers could figure out what to do. She later turned herself in and was arrested. The news was everywhere immediately. Andre did an interview with People 2 weeks after the fire and told them that Lisa had a drinking problem. This meant that TLC's name was all over the papers and in every news report. We were on CNN every day. But then O.J. Simpson drove his white Bronco away from the cops, and it finally took the shine off Lisa. I called my mama. We ain't on TV no more because O.J. did something. But the damage had been done. No one wanted to work with TLC after Lisa burned the house down. They didn't want us wearing their clothes, nothing. In their eyes, if one of us did something wrong, then all of us had messed up. Lisa was sentenced to 5 years of probation and court-ordered alcohol rehab. The judge also handed her a fine of $10,000 for first-degree arson. A week later, she went into a diversion center to do her time. Lisa asked me not to come see her in the diversion center. I followed her wishes. She seemed to want to keep that part of her life separate. I remember her telling me later how mean the lady was to her. She was forced to do disgusting things just because she was a celebrity, like clean the floor with a toothbrush. Lisa was stuck in there, but the world was waiting for a second TLC album. So while Lisa was in rehab, Chili and I went back into the studio. We'd started working on our second album at the end of 1993, but now we were behind schedule. We worked with Babyface, Dallas, and Jermaine again this time around. We weren't always in the studio together, especially since Lisa was AWOL. But we knew what we wanted from these new songs. Once you succeed, you don't necessarily know how you did it. It was just something that happened organically. So after that, we had to step back and try to figure out what we did right the first time so we could do it again. We knew our hooks were good, and we knew it was important to keep talking about real issues in the songs. People liked us because we made unique sounding tracks that actually had strong lyrical content and a dance to every hook and chorus. Now we needed to decide who we were going to be the second time around. I can't tell you how many songs we tried until we found the vibe that we liked. I remember singing a song called Leaving Las Vegas that didn't make it. It just wasn't quite right. I went through a lot of tracks trying to find how we were going to sound. There's all kinds of unreleased demos of me singing stuff, figuring out the vibe. Ultimately, we found it on songs like Creep and Waterfalls. Creep actually started out as a solo song for me, which was written about a situation between me and an ex-boyfriend, but became one of the central tracks on Crazy Sexy Cool. By then, Dallas had bought his own studio in Atlanta, Dart Studios, and we laid down most of the tracks there. Most of the time, it was me, Dallas, and Leslie Brathwaite in the studio. Leslie was our runner until one day the engineer didn't show up. Dallas, I said, Leslie can do it. Leslie looked surprised. He just stared at me wide-eyed, but I knew he could do it. He had spent countless hours behind the soundboard after our sessions. That night, he became my new engineer. He's since worked with Madonna and Michael Jackson, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Pharrell, and Mariah Carey, as well as in movies like Transformers, you name it. And I helped induct him into the Full Sail University Hall of Fame, where he'd graduated alongside many greats. He's now my best friend, my daughter's goddaddy, and one of the best engineers in the business. I sang most of Crazy Sexy Cool in the studio by myself with only Dallas and Leslie there. The interludes between the album songs felt really important on this album. We had to get them right. They wanted us to record them with Sean Puffy Combs, so the label flew us into New York to record with him. I worked with Puffy before, but unfortunately, we hadn't seen eye to eye. I recorded a song with him, and it had ended in a near fight. I'm going to take this back to Dallas and do it with him instead, I told Puffy in the studio the first time around. Fuck that, he replied. This was my idea. We got up in each other's faces. We looked like we were about to fight. Jessica calmed me down. Screw this, I said, and left. I flew back to Atlanta and went straight to Dallas. I'm doing this with you, I said, not Puffy. He didn't understand how to work with me, and I didn't understand his methods either. LA had to step in and convince me that we could meet in the middle. I could record my part with Dallas, and then Puffy could come to Atlanta to produce the record with his own producer, Chucky Thompson, and Dallas. That's what we did, and it became a remake of If I Was Your Girlfriend by Prince. Afterward, Puffy and I made up. TLC went to New York to record our interludes with him, and we became known for those after Crazy Sexy Cool dropped. Lisa had to come out of rehab to record her vocals for most of the album. She showed up one day with her rap for Waterfalls, lyrics she had started writing after seeing a rainbow. Chili and I loved it immediately. Waterfalls was my way of trying to tap into alternative music. My boys from childhood, Rico and Marquez Etheridge, and their crew, Organized Noise, came up with the song. And it was amazing. We got CeeLo Green to sing the background vocals with Deborah Killings. The most important part of the song was that it had a message. AIDS was a big epidemic at the time. It was something that needed to be talked about. Us speaking about AIDS directly in a song made people feel like we were standing up for them. It also talked about the illegal drug trade and how a mother lost her son because of it. When you first come out as a band, you just hope people like you. But when you come out again, you have to evolve. You have to be better. We had relatable topics and memorable dances to each hook on the first album, but to talk about real social issues without sounding like we were preaching also helped push us to the next level. When Crazy Sexy Cool dropped on November 15th, 1994, we'd already unveiled one single, Creep. It was tough getting the video right for that one, and music videos are notoriously difficult. They look good, but making them is a trial by fire. It took us 3 tries to get the video for Creep right. We kept going back to the drawing board because the ideas weren't what we needed to hit it big again. It was never good enough. The video for Salt and Pepper's What a Man had dropped right around the same time as our album. It was directed by a guy named Matthew Ralston. We decided we needed to get him to direct the Creep video. We were used to running our own stuff, so it was an adjustment. Matthew was really hands-on. He did the clothing, the choreography, everything. TLC wasn't used to that. We had an argument over the wardrobe, and there was some tension over the dance moves for the video. I created the routine for Creep. The funny part is that I will sometimes make up routines to other people's music, and I made up Creep to Dr. Dre's The Chronic album. When we got to rehearsal, so I could teach the other girls my routine for the video, we were locked out of the space. There was this choreographer in there talking about how he already had our routine. This particular choreographer ended up being really famous for working with Beyonce, but his claim to fame at the time was Hold On by En Vogue. We were like, what? We do our routines. We weren't sure why he didn't realize that and had us wait outside in the lobby. Look, I said when we got into the rehearsal space, I don't know how other groups work, but I think we work kind of differently. We looked at his routine, but of course, we thought mine was better. That's what we used. Although, as a compromise, I took 2 of his moves and added them to mine. As we practiced, the choreographer kept stopping us to fix things. Lisa got so mad.
Why don't you do what you get paid to do, motherfucker? She snapped. Push play and stop on the tape deck. Play and stop. That's your job, not to be over here messing with me.
Motherfucker was her favorite word at the time. The staff from LaFace was there, drinking gin and juice, and they were done. They thought it was hilarious, but very stressful. There was another argument over the clothes.
TLC is different, Lisa said. You see that motherfucker sweater over there? T-BOZ will make that a hat.
She was talking off the top of her head, but her point was there. We were known for dressing differently. We ended up deciding to wear silk pajamas. They were custom made. It felt like our thing, and Matthew agreed to the compromise. It was embarrassing, though, because Lisa kept calling him a motherfucker throughout the shoot. It ended up being a phenomenal video. It was how we came back on the scene because it showed the growth of TLC. That was a big deal. We came from these tomboys to being more like sexy women. Matthew put a flash of my booby cake in the video, and men still talk about it to this day. It helped reveal our womanhood. The Creep video did really well and helped move the needle, but we didn't know Waterfalls would be the key to the album. I knew from the start that it was a good song and that it needed strong visuals. A video can make a song come alive and pop, and that's the kind of song Waterfalls was. Everybody could relate because it's upbeat sounding with massive, attention-grabbing horns, but it's also relatable to a certain group of people with its subject matter. But how do you make the subject interesting to everybody? You've got to make it a strong visual message. Big $1 million videos weren't being made by everyone back then. It wasn't a thing yet, but we knew the song needed a massive music video to go along with it. Clive Davis, then the founder and president of Arista Records, didn't like Waterfalls. He just didn't believe it was a good song, and he didn't want to let us make the video we imagined. So we made this poster board, which was a written letter begging LA to give us a chance to shoot the video, and marched into LA's office. We knew we wouldn't disappoint him. "You've got to believe in us," I said. "We want you to front us the money for the video since Arista won't give it to us," Lisa added. "If you believe in us, we'll make you the best video ever," Chili said. We all nodded. "All right," LA said. "I'll take your word for it." And he gave us the money. $1 million. He did believe in us. Later, he had that poster board framed for his office. We asked for F. Gary Gray to direct the video. We met with him and explained our concept, and it was immediately clear that he was the right person to bring it to life. We filmed the video for Waterfalls on June 8th and 9th, 1995 at Universal Studios Hollywood in the same place Jaws was shot. It felt like a big deal because it was the first time we were allowed to do the whole concept for one of our music videos. It all came together in unison. The Waterfalls video was also the first time our stylist Julie Maharis started dressing us. She stepped in after we ditched our last stylist at a store by sending her in to buy clothes and then driving off. Before that stylist, I used to dress us. I'd fly to New York and buy clothing and material, and sometimes Lisa would airbrush them or her uncle would sew them. Until Julie, stylist, wouldn't last with us. Julie had done Rhythm Nation for Janet Jackson, and she was perfect for our trend-setting style. She dressed us far ahead of the rest of the music industry. She put us in futuristic clothes way before that look was popping. On the day of the shoot, we had to start hair and makeup at 4 a.m. so that filming could start at 6 a.m. That meant we had to be up by 3 a.m. So the night before the shoot, they gave each of us a sleeping pill to make sure we would go to bed. "Have your ass in bed by 8, management told us. "Your call time is 3 a.m. We were so bad that they had to treat us like kids. They didn't trust us to get enough rest on our own. I went to sleep at 8:30 p.m. and woke up on time at 3 a.m. to go to the shoot. They did our hair and makeup in the trailers near the set, and as we were waiting to get started, we realized we didn't have a dance routine for the video. We hadn't had the time to practice one. I made up the Waterfall Dance in my trailer that morning. There was a dance in Atlanta called the Bankhead Bounce, which is what inspired it. I thought, let me make a variation of that and slow it down, add a little something extra, and make it our own thing. I created that routine in about 10 minutes. Lisa and Chili liked it, and we practiced it as quickly as possible. No one ever realized that I basically pulled it out of my ass on the spot. So much work went into making the video over those 2 days. We had to stand on a thin, clear bar they built in 80 tons of water, and you had to take a boat to get to it. I can't swim, so there were 6 scuba divers under the water surrounding us just in case. I couldn't move forward or backward. That's why you see my feet anchored in. I could only move my arms in my midsection. The water swayed as we stood on the bar, and it was terrifying. You obviously couldn't wear a life vest. We got up there, did our new dance routine, and just hoped that the scuba divers would catch us if I fell. That day, I also found an opportunity to pay Marie back for all her pranks. Guess who showed up to the set of Waterfalls? Our old friend, Chucky Booker. Seeing him reminded me that I owed Marie for the stunt she pulled during House Party 3. I found the sloppiest, dirtiest guy in the video crew. He looked homeless. His fingernails were filthy and his breath stunk. It was perfect. Do you have a girlfriend? I asked him. He shook his head no. Great, I continued, because my hairstylist Marie is really shy and she likes you a lot. I handed him a note I had written as if I were Marie. It had her cell number and hotel room on it and said, "Will you spend time with me?" He was thrilled. He sidled up to her trailer like a dirty pimp and said, "Hey, I got your note." I didn't write a note, she said. Tionne said you would say that, he replied. He called her a bunch of times and kept calling her hotel room. I couldn't resist. Even though all those years had passed, I owed her, and it was worth it. When we finished shooting the video, all 3 of us cried. It was the culmination of so much effort and so much passion. It's so good, we agreed when we saw the first cut. We don't even have to be in it. And it wasn't just us who thought so. Waterfall spent 7 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, and the video won 4 awards at the 1995 MTV Video Music Awards, including Video of the Year. We became the first Black artist to ever receive the trophy for that award. The video made was only the 2nd music video by an African-American artist played on VH1 after Michael Jackson. We've played Waterfall so many times since, on massive stages and on TV shows around the world. It's our most influential song to this day. And it means so much to me because we believed in ourselves and our vision enough to fight for it. We got to be a voice during the AIDS epidemic, and that feels so important even now. By 1995, TLC became one of the biggest bands in the world. Crazy Sexy Cool was the 5th best-selling album of the year in 1995. Truth be told, some of Lisa's antics helped get our name out there even more. If you didn't know TLC for Waterfalls, then you knew us as the group with the girl who burned down the football player's house. We appeared on the cover of Vibe magazine wearing firefighter outfits. The headline read, "TLC fires it up," and the tagline said, "Burning up the charts, burning down the house." Other magazines jumped on board. Rolling Stone used "Burn Baby Burn" as their headline, writing, "The women of TLC stay cool under fire." Everyone knew who we were, and they cared equally about us and about the music. Lisa even thanked the Atlanta Fire Department in an acceptance speech for one of the many awards we won for the album. The success of our album gave us a lot of opportunities to be in the spotlight. I was invited to be the mistress of ceremony at the Rhythm and Blues Foundation Pioneer Awards, an event that was meant to highlight the past and future of the music industry. TLC apparently represented the future, So they had me come. Everyone was there. Prince, Smokey Robinson, Barry White, Stevie Wonder. It was amazing. They selected Aretha Franklin to represent the past. She and I were meant to stand on stage side by side and present during the ceremony, but she didn't want her podium next to mine. I didn't even know her, so it was weird for her to diss me.
Move my podium to the other side,
She told the people organizing the event. What? She was an icon and acting crazy. At the time, I was petite with meat. That means I was tiny, but with a little booty. They gave me a size 2 dress, one of those sample showroom ones, and it was see-through with slits covering your good stuff. I never came out in TLC dressed girly, so this was a first for the public. I was known for baggy pants, not gowns. Everyone was used to me looking like a boy. Aretha came out first. When I followed, the audience gasped. You could hear them saying things like, "She looks so pretty. I didn't know she had a shape."
What?
Aretha said into her microphone. You think she looks good? I used to look like that, but way better. Was she serious? Anger swelled through me. I could feel my mama out there in the audience praying that I wouldn't snap. She was staring at me so hard that it was easy to find her face. She shook her head because she knew what I was thinking. Her face said, "Please, Tionne, don't." She knew I was about to go off right there in front of everyone. I took a deep breath and turned back to my microphone. "So," I said, and continued the ceremony. It almost took Jesus himself to come down and stop me from cussing her out, but my mom's face was priceless. It was just enough to hold me back. At the after party, Prince came over to me. He was a funny guy. He talked a little bit like a robot, always with a deadpan voice. "You made me laugh," he said. "You're so funny. You wanted to whip her ass." "Yeah," I replied. "You think?" I didn't care much for Aretha after that. But it was amazing that we were rolling with the big league now. We met Michael Jackson, and he once told L.A. that I was his favorite member of TLC. L.A. respected my opinions about music back then, and I encouraged him to sign Outkast and Youngbloods. I gave him some advice about some of his other artists, like Pink, for example, but I don't think she even knows that. L.A.'s brother originally wasn't going to check out Outkast, but I told him, "You're going to miss out." These guys are all that and then some. I called him at 1 a.m. to come down to the studio and hear them. He showed up and ended up giving them a deal. I'd come a long way from being the kid dancing at Jelly Bean every weekend. I was in it now. It sounds like a lot of excitement and fame and shimmer, but it wasn't all great. Behind the curtain, TLC was dead broke. By the summer of 1995, as we unveiled Waterfalls, we'd sold over 15 million albums. That made up over $75 million in album sales for the label, and TLC had literally nothing to show for it. Here's how that's possible. For each album we sold, TLC got 7 points, aka our royalty percentage out of 100, which equates to 56 cents. That was split between the three of us. Then we owed taxes. We owed a percentage to Pebble still, a percentage to LaFace and Arista, a payment to our accountant, and a payment to our lawyer. Each member of the band owed LaFace $100,000 and Pebbletone $50,000, thanks to our contracts with both companies. The amount of money we owed people seemed endless, so after all of the bills in both 1993 and 1994, Lisa, Chili, and I took home only $50,000 each. We were insanely low on the totem pole, even though we were the artist. We were the ones out there working our asses off and touring and promoting the music to make it sell. There was just no money. It was so messed up. I was living in a nice condo in Atlanta, and I couldn't even pay to keep my lights on. We had the #1 record in America, and we were the biggest girl group in the world, and we couldn't pay for anything. People expected us to have fancy cars and other glamorous things. But if you buy big shit, you have to be able to pay it off so you can keep it. Some of the label's assistants had better cars than we did. We were out of options. We were angry, and we needed to get control of the band's finances. I want to be really clear. We never said Pebbles stole from us. She was supposed to renegotiate our album contract after our first album dropped, but she didn't. That's standard practice in this industry. You always renegotiate the terms after a successful release. That was one of the main reasons we fired her. She did unfair business. We made more money as we became a bigger group, but we were stuck with the same low percentages. Her cut was supposed to change. In 5 years, we'd receive 1% of $175 million worth of revenue from TLC. It just wasn't right. Most people know the story of how we held Arista up at gunpoint to ask for our money. While we were in New York after Crazy Sexy Cool came out, Lisa gathered up some of her crew from the diversion center. She had a plan. We'd asked LA for our money, and he said Clive had it. Okay, then we'd ask Clive. Lisa was the ringleader, helping put it all together. Lisa had LaFace rent her a car to drive some girls from the diversion center and their guns up to New York. We always had the same limo driver when we went to New York City. He had a crush on me and always left stuffed animals and flowers in the back seat. He was the getaway car for this escapade. He waited outside as we all marched into the Arista office and held everybody hostage. We never touched any of the guns. It was just the girls Lisa had met in the diversion center. There were 8 or 9 of us who barged in. Puffy was in a meeting when we arrived, and he called LA and some other folks to say we were wilding out after we politely asked him to leave his meeting with Clive. Yo, Puffy said on the phone to LA, your girl's up here mad bugging, yo. Sorry, but we gotta handle this, we told him. We confronted Clive in his office while the rest of the girls went through the building taking down all the plaques with our name on it. To this day, you can find those plaques on eBay because we handed them out to whoever wanted them. We went down to the projects in Atlanta and just tossed out TLC plaques. In the press, Clive had to shut it down quickly. The next day, one of the newspapers in New York printed a story that we shown up at the label with all male bodyguards, which we hadn't. And he didn't have a real answer for us. He was really talking in circles, something about our contracts. I wouldn't tell anyone to do what we did. It worked out okay for us. We didn't go to jail, but it wasn't ideal. The truth is, you live and learn in the music business. It's a process. Knowledge is everything. You have to seek out information so you don't sell yourself short. You have to educate yourself, which we didn't know when we first started. We got swept up in the whirlwind, and we didn't realize we needed to advocate for ourselves as businesswomen. If you're smart, you figure that out fast, especially if you want longevity in this business. In the end, our lawyer, David Bisbee, recommended bankruptcy to deal with our financial woes. Afterward, we'd have to renegotiate our recording contracts. On July 3, 1995, TLC filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It was our best hope. It took months to resolve. Our lawsuit against LaFace, which we also filed, lasted for over a year. We had to just keep touring and being TLC until it was settled. Filing the paperwork it involved cost us each $15,000, a sum none of us had. Lisa asked Andre for the money. She'd reconciled with him after getting out of rehab, and thankfully, he let us borrow it. We couldn't even afford to go broke on our own. We paid him back once we got back on our feet, but it was humiliating. It made me feel like I didn't have control over anything. The stress of everything made me sick, too. I kept having sickle cell flare-ups whenever something felt tense, which was all the time. The record label flew us out to Los Angeles for the Grammys in early 1996. We'd gotten 6 nominations. It was a hell of a week. They put us up in the Four Seasons in Beverly Hills, and it felt like things escalated every single day we were there. There was this fancy jewelry store in the hotel lobby with diamond necklaces and everything. We were still really furious at the label for lowballing us on our money. So we told our whole crew, the hairstylists, dancers, assistants, everyone, to go by the gift shop and charge whatever they wanted. We said, go get a diamond and charge it to our rooms. Our room charges went on the LaFace credit card. We racked up a $250,000 tab at the hotel, including $22,000 in that gift shop. Was it irresponsible? Maybe. But we were so unhappy and felt so slighted. The first night in Los Angeles, we wanted to go out to a club. When we got there, they refused to let us in because no one had ID.
Fuck ID, Lisa said. My face is my motherfucking ID.
It was embarrassing and hilarious at the same time. I was worried because Lisa was still on probation. We didn't need her getting into any trouble. She promised not to, but that promise clearly wasn't holding. She brought along her cousin Cherie and Tangi and some friends from the diversion center again. Cherie amped things up.
My face is my ID,
Lisa said again, pointing. Yeah, Cherie said, we're TLC. Not only did the security at the club not let us in, but they removed us from the premises. The next night, we tried a different club. As we pulled up, I saw Lisa on the street cussing out Cherie and blocking traffic. Instead of parking, she jumped out of the car and left Cherie inside crying. Cherie sounded like a dying hyena and baboon combined. Julie, our friend and stylist, and I convinced Lisa to park the car and unblock the road so people would stop honking at us. We went inside the club. And while we were sitting at our table, Cherie kept trying to start fights with everyone around us. We'll fuck you up, she said. That's TLC, Left Eye and T-BOZ, she added. We from Philly. See that white girl, Julie? She'll kick your ass too. We had nothing to do with it. She was getting us into trouble. She had a big mouth, and this wasn't the time. I tried to stay positive. It was a crazy week, but maybe it could get better. I had done a job with Disney, and one morning I walked into the lobby of the Four Seasons to find a massive box of every single stuffed animal dog from 101 Dalmatians. It was as long as a car. It came up to my head. It was sitting there waiting for me, the 2 parents and all their puppies in a box, which was printed with black and white spots and tied with a red bow. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. It was definitely the biggest gift I'd ever been given. I thought things are looking up. I was mistaken, though. The real drama came the night of the Grammys, toward the end of the week. We won 2 awards, which was exciting, and performed Waterfalls. It was fun and nothing seemed to miss. But things got dicey at the MCA Records after party, which was back at our hotel. We'd stolen a bottle of Moet from a Sony party earlier in the evening for Lisa and her crew. I was outside arguing with Dalvin over something dumb when Julie ran out of the hotel doors.
Lisa's on the bar,
she exclaimed.
She's swinging at everyone.
I ran inside, Dalvin and Julie following me. Lisa was up there wagging her fist and threatening the staff. Apparently, the waitress had taken Lisa's bottle of Moet because Los Angeles bars had to close at 2:30 a.m. The waitress was rude and treated Lisa like a child, taking her bottle without any notice or permission. I tapped Lisa on the shoulder. She turned and didn't swing or yell. She just said, "She took my bottle. I told her it wasn't hers." "We can get you another bottle," I said. I wanted to calm her down. I didn't know where I would actually get another bottle from at the time.
"Fuck that,"
she replied.
"I want that bottle."
Tangi chimed in. "Hell yeah," she said. "Fuck that." "No," I said. "Lisa can't get in trouble. Please don't rile her up." Tangi stepped back. We had to keep Lisa out of jail. She probably wasn't supposed to be drinking since she was on probation, but it didn't occur to me at the time. We just needed to get her out of there in one piece. The staff started shutting down the party as we coerced Lisa off the bar. They called the cops, and the party was shut down. They didn't arrest anyone because we promised to take care of Lisa. It took almost an hour and a half to do so. Lisa was so serious about that bottle of Moet. The hotel agreed to give her another bottle in the morning as long as Lisa kept the peace. They said they had to take all the liquor out of her hotel room until the next day, too. Finally, Jessica and I got Lisa into the lobby. Everything seemed fine, but then came Andre. He was slap-ass drunk, too. "Baby, what happened?" he asked Lisa. "Just what we needed. Andre here to stir things up." Lisa started getting all amped up again. "Dre," Jessica said, "we've got this. They're talking about taking Lisa to jail," Jessica added. "We have to shut this down. She'll get her bottle back tomorrow. We just have to get her to her room." He got her to calm down again, and we escorted Lisa to the elevators. Suddenly, out of nowhere, she started screaming and smacked her palms against the elevator doors. I don't know what happened or why. "No!" Lisa shrieked. "I'm not going up there." She was yelling and taking off her clothes right there in the elevator. She was about to get butt naked. I couldn't take it. I threw up my hands. "Jessica," I said, "you deal with it. If she goes to jail, I'm done." I didn't know what else to say. Lisa and Andre started arguing, and she was too drunk to reason with. I was so frustrated by it all. I left. Later, I found out that Andre and Lisa, wearing only her drawers, had grabbed her belongings out of the room and left in a car and went back to Andre's hotel. She just bolted. It was a fitting end to a horrible week. And just imagine if cell phone videos and social media and TMZ had existed back then. But I will always admit that she kept things interesting, and whether it was good or bad, I take her just like she was. The bankruptcy was finally settled in April of 1996, and our lawsuit against LaFace that November. The settlement released us from all contractual obligations with Pebbletone, so we were now completely free of Pebbles. We would remain on LaFace. All of it was watched really closely by the music industry. It was a big deal to see a hugely successful act go broke because of bad contracts. We were leading by example, even if we didn't want to be the poster child for this. A lot of people saw what happened to us, and I hope it made young artists reconsider how to do their business. And I hope it made record label executives aware that it's not okay to take advantage of musicians. We were just glad it was over. We wanted to go back to being performers instead of the subjects of news articles. It was time to move forward, both as a band and as people. Chapter 6. The Truth. In the mid-90s, there were a lot of rumors flying around about celebrities and AIDS. Freddie Mercury had died of the disease in 1991. Then Arthur Ashe. If a famous person got sick in public, it was assumed that's what they had. In the spring of 1995, rapper Eazy-E died from complications of AIDS, only a month after being diagnosed. It was a big deal in the press and made a lot of headlines. Everyone was talking about it and trying to figure out if anyone else famous was sick. I was in and out of hospitals a lot, although most people didn't know why. And every time I went in, aching from the pain of my sickle cell disease, I'd hear people muttering to each other. They'd ask, "Does she have any symptoms?" They meant, "Does she have AIDS?" At one of our shows, I collapsed on the side of the stage after we finished performing, and I left the venue in an ambulance. The press and our fans got wind that something was going on, and everyone made it into a big dramatic thing. Rumors started to spread. I'd met Eazy-E, but we'd never really hung out. We just acknowledged each other in passing. Still, there was speculation that I had gotten AIDS from him before he died. It was the craziest thing, but everybody believed it. They wanted to believe it. I could feel people whispering about me, assuming they knew what was going on with my body. This was before social media and rumors felt more substantial. It was harder for them to spread, so any that did had real force behind them. And this was one dumb rumor. It was people being ignorant, which I can't stand. But it all made me reconsider why I was being silent about my disease. I wanted to kill these ridiculous rumors, but I also wondered if there was any actual reason to keep hiding. The pressure built. During one hospital visit, while we were out on tour, people who worked in the hospital made excuses to come into my room. Everybody kept coming in, pretending to do things like empty the garbage, just so they can see for real if I had AIDS. One guy even came in, opened the cupboard, found nothing, and left. I'd hear them asking one another, "Does she have any lesions?" Jessica got so fed up, she cussed them out. And that's saying a lot because Jessica didn't curse. Jessica is the only person outside of my family who would sit with me in the hospital. She cared about me as a person, not for what I could bring to the table. I will always love her for that. "She's here because she needs help," Jessica shouted. It was stupid. Even if I did have AIDS, they'd still have to help me. They all scurried away, probably to gossip somewhere else. They were ignorant. They associated me with the wrong disease. At the end of the day, it didn't matter what I had, sickle cell, AIDS, lupus, whatever. I was a person in the hospital. And instead of helping me, these people were being nosy and gossiping, completely ignoring my pain. I wasn't certain I was ready to come out with it directly, though. I wasn't sure how to do it, even if I was ready. I didn't want to feel pitied. I got a call from a woman named Linda Anderson, who was running the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America. She'd heard from someone she knew that I had sickle cell. She asked if I wanted to be their new spokesperson. "This could be a really good partnership," she said. "We could utilize you in a lot of positive ways." It shifted my idea of what it would mean to be honest about my sickle cell disease. I could use it to raise awareness and hope. I could help to find a cure and teach people about the possibilities of alternative medicine. It didn't have to be about anybody feeling sorry for me. So I said, okay, I'll do it. On October 10th, 1996, I threw a party at Liquid Nightclub in Miami to announce that I was the new spokesperson for the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, and to finally admit my own struggle with the disease. Everybody likes a party, and I wanted it to feel like a celebration. At the time, I was the youngest person and the first woman and actual celebrity with the disease to represent sickle cell and the foundation, and it felt like a really big deal. Lisa and Chili didn't show up for whatever reason. Who knows why? My mama was there standing by my side like always, and the club was packed with close friends and family. Lots of press came, and I gave a short speech to announce my involvement with the cause. I just wanted to say my thing and let everyone get back to partying. They presented me with an award for my efforts, and after I spoke, She's the Man, a rock band I was managing, performed for the crowd. It was a hit. It made me so happy that I'd agreed to join up with SCDAA. The next day, Entertainment Tonight aired a segment on the party, revealing my secret to the public and to all our fans. No more speculation, no more rumors. I shut it all down, and the truth was out. All that weight I'd been hauling around for decades had been lifted. I was free. There's a legitimate liberation that comes from a confession, whether it's telling the truth about your disease to the world or just admitting something to yourself. Once you're no longer afraid of speaking the words, once it's all out there, there's a rush of freedom. It makes you wonder why you've held on to your secret for so long in the first place. I'm not defined by my sickle cell. I've never thought that. It's not who I am, even if the disease trails me wherever I go. Facing your fears and being honest with yourself is one of the hardest things you can do. But admitting to it let me become more myself, which is a very powerful thing. I could go forward into the world with one less thing to worry about. When I first came out with the disease, I was 26, not yet correctly diagnosed, even after all these years. The doctors really didn't know what was going on with my body. They knew it was some type of sickle cell. They knew I was in pain and that I had all of the symptoms every other sickler had, except for the physical characteristics. But there was no exact definition for it. They'd always told me I had a rare type of the disease that doesn't actually exist: sickle cell anemia and allergic arthritis. If you Google that, it doesn't come up. After I'd started working with the Sickle Cell Disease Association, this guy named Phil Oliver started calling me. He worked for the Sickle Cell Foundation of Georgia, and he was determined to fix me, or at least to try to control my disease. I can help you, he said. I got some holistic methods. I kept thinking, who is this psycho who keeps chasing me down? But he was so persistent. One day he called and I couldn't help but give in. Okay, fine, I said, help me. After we spoke, I found out how knowledgeable Phil really was about sickle cell and realized he could actually help me feel better. He suggested acupuncture and a series of holistic remedies, so I went to see a Chinese herbalist named Dr. Lee, who had an office in Chinatown in Atlanta. Phil claimed he knew exactly what type of sickle cell I had. He was convinced. He pricked my finger right there in the lobby of Dr. Lee's office and tested it with a little kit he carried around. Yep, he said, I knew it. Phil instructed me to make an appointment with a doctor named Dr. Kenneth Bronstein, who was also based in Atlanta. My mama came with me to his office. I was sure this was going to be yet another idiot doctor who had no idea what was going on. I also thought he was going to be an asshole because the first thing he said to me was,
No cell phones in this office.
I turned to my mama and said, he's going to be mean. Give him a chance, she responded patiently. Dr. Bronstein took some blood, checked it, and came back into the room. You have sickle thal with arthritis, which is sickle cell type SC mixed with beta thalassemia, he said. It was a real mouthful, and it was the exact same thing Phil had said. I didn't entirely know what it meant, but Dr. Bronstein seemed very certain. This was it, not whatever other random diagnoses I'd been given since I was 7 years old. It was an enormous relief to have a legitimate term for all I endured. I now knew what type I had so I could start trying to fix myself, if not completely heal myself, and I could make the best of it. It came after a lifetime of dealing with doctors who knew nothing or who had God complexes. A lot of them never knew what they were talking about, but couldn't bring themselves to admit it. There was another wave of relief, knowing too, that I had found a doctor who actually cared. Dr. Bronstein was known for working with a lot of sicklers, who are especially prominent in the South. I could now walk into a hospital and say exactly what type of sickle cell disease I had, and they'd know better how to treat it, or so I thought. There was a real name for what I'd been feeling for decades. After that, I began to understand sickle cell better. I knew how it affected me personally and how it could affect other people with the disease. I read a lot and asked questions. My type was rare, so rare that I didn't exhibit most of the physical characteristics typically common to most sickle cell patients. My external symptoms are dark circles or bags under my eyes, pink lips, and a pale face. Mine aren't permanent or everyday, like other patients can be. You can tell when I'm tired or sick through my eyes. My mama can look at me and know I'm about to get sick, but I don't always show those traits. In fact, most of the time I didn't look sick at all, even though my symptoms on the inside are just as bad as any other sickle cell patient. Dr. Bronstein did a case study on me after he became my doctor. He wasn't trying to experiment on me or make any guesses. He didn't want me to feel like a guinea pig or a lab rat, which a lot of doctors do. A lot of those guys do what I like to call guesstimating. They just hope they get some of it right. It always pisses me off when they don't know what's wrong and they refuse to admit it. If you don't know, just say you don't know. But even though I liked Dr. Bronstein, and even though I knew he cared, it didn't mean that I suddenly trusted all doctors. I still don't. But this was a huge step, just like admitting my disease to the world was a big step. No doctor has ever been there for me like Dr. B. We've become so close over the years, and I trust him with all my health issues. I call him about medical issues that are not in his field, even if it's about a stubbed toe. At the time, I wasn't sure how much my public admission helped anyone. I didn't know if me having the disease made other people feel better about having it too. But I know now that it has. TLC has always tried to be a force of positivity and social awareness in the world, both as a group and as individuals. We aren't some pop band who makes music just to make music. We've always had a message. I knew my own experience could be an opportunity to help raise awareness and money for the disease. But it's only been in more recent years that I've seen just how much my own struggle has touched our fans personally. People can be pretty self-involved. Some think only about their own stories, not about the stories around them. I'd always worried about what people would think of me if they knew I was sick. I didn't want the pity or the looks, but this was bigger than me. I could talk the talk, but I had to walk it too. It was more important to push past my fears and help others than it was to sit there and be scared. I thought, what am I here to do? Why did God put me on this earth? Why did He allow me to get through things that others didn't? I thought a lot about sickness, not just my sickness, but the way all people deal with getting ill. It comes into all our lives in some way or another. In 1997, I started to see how illness can impact the people you love. My grandma Velma, who was still living in Des Moines at the time, started seeing her health decline. Her hips had deteriorated, and both of them had to be replaced. My mama used to fly back and forth from Atlanta to Des Moines to take care of her and help her with the surgeries. I'd always promised her that once I found success and earned some money, I'd buy her a place in Atlanta. It was now time to make good on my promise, especially since she'd been in pain for the past few years. It'd be easier if Grandma just lived here with you, I told my mama. She agreed. My grandma was a stubborn lady. She'd been in Des Moines her whole life, and I wasn't sure if she'd leave Iowa. She was in her early 80s, and she had a community there. But I had to do what was right for her, and now I could afford to make it happen. I built a house for my mom in Jonesboro, a small town outside of Atlanta, in a nice country neighborhood on a golf course. It had a 2-bedroom and 2-bathroom apartment downstairs for my grandma, with its own kitchen, living room, dining room, and den. I convinced her to move to Atlanta. "Look at this," I said, gesturing to the downstairs apartment. I had a very serious tone in my voice. "Grandma," I said, "we built this for you." She could live like a queen and be near the family. It made me really happy that she agreed. On Thanksgiving Day, my grandma arrived in Atlanta for good. Her hips were feeling better and her physical therapy had gone well, and she was fine for several months. It seemed like everything would work out. But in early 1998, my grandma got sick again. She had already survived breast cancer, and I thought those days were behind us. The doctors diagnosed her with uterine cancer that had spread into her lungs. Her health started to fade more. My mom took her to visit her loved ones for one last time because we didn't know what the future held. There was a big family dinner, but after that, her health got even worse. She was admitted to the hospital, where the doctors said there was nothing more they could do. They gave her a choice between going to hospice or going home, and she decided that if she was going to pass, it should be at home. A nurse came in and trained my mama and my aunts to give my grandma her medicines through a feeding tube. It required a lot of care. It was very upsetting for the whole family. We worked in shifts, taking care of her. She was our matriarch, the center of the family, and it was up to us to make sure she didn't suffer in her final days. I couldn't be there as often as I liked. I had contractual obligations to TLC. We went into the studio to start working on our third album, Fan Mail, in April of 1998, and that became all too compromising. I went home to Mom's house as much as I could, and I sat with my grandma even after studio, no matter how tired I was. Sometimes I would even cancel studio sessions. I sat with her even if she was sleeping. She was a small woman, only about 5 feet 2 inches, but she was powerful, and she had an inner strength that she carried throughout her illness. She lost her hair during chemo, and her weight dropped significantly. She became sensitive to smells and noise. I'd watch her and think how small and fragile she seemed. I remember one visit very clearly. Grandma was on the couch, very quiet. She reminded me of a baby bird. She refused to wear her wig in the house, although sometimes she'd wear one outside if she was feeling better. She was 83, and there were no wrinkles on her face. I gazed at her and marveled at how beautiful she looked. "Grandma," I said, "you're really pretty." "Oh, dear, you've got to be kidding me," she replied. She didn't seem to believe it. "No, really," I said. "Your face is flawless. It's so clear. It's so pretty," I added. "So what if you're smaller than you used to be?" I really meant it, and I think she could see that. It seemed to make her feel a little better. She and I had a special bond. I'd had IVs stuck in me my whole life. I knew what it felt like to be sick and to feel helpless in your own body. But for some reason, her illness seemed harder than my own. "Your disease is so much worse than mine," I told her. "I don't think there's any comparison." My grandma just shrugged. "Pain is pain," she said. But I've always felt like pain isn't just pain for everyone. I go through a lot. And it may seem worse than some people deal with, but it's not comparable. Pain differs based on who you are. Pain is pain, but some is severe and some is light. And what is severe to someone else may be light to me. When you watch someone go through something, it can feel like the worst thing in the world. I've seen others have a cold and act like they're dying. They don't know anything worse. We all have a different pain threshold, which is something I've learned over the years as I've been sick and as I've watched other people get sick. It was really tough to watch my grandma going through chemo, but she always stayed positive. There was always a smile on her face, and she wouldn't let anything bring her down or defeat her. I remember once asking her, "Are you going to give up or are you going to keep fighting?" She smiled at me as she always did. "What do you think?" she replied. "Of course I'm going to keep fighting, sweetie. I'm never going to give up." She didn't either, not even when she got sicker and was confined to her bed. It taught me even more about dealing with illness. As I saw her inner strength, I realized that disease is only as powerful as you allow it to be. Even when your body is breaking down, your mind and your heart and your spirit can shine through. I realized that my own day-to-day problems felt insignificant. If she could push through, then so could I. Just before Halloween, I got sick with the flu. I couldn't be around my grandma because her immune system was out of whack from all the chemo and medications. I stayed at my mama's house but avoided contact with my grandma because she couldn't afford to catch my cold. Anyone with cancer shouldn't be around other germs. I sat in the living room and stared at her lying in her hospital bed from afar. We were in the midst of finishing fan mail, and I wanted her to be able to hear it. But she hadn't been able to focus in the past few weeks and couldn't listen to anything, especially not the new TLC album. She was in too much pain. In the middle of the night on Halloween, someone woke me up and said Grandma was breathing funny. We called the ambulance and took her to the hospital. Maybe there was something the doctors could do for her that we couldn't. "There's nothing we can do," one of the doctors confirmed. "We just have to wait." They said she would pass away within hours, but she didn't. So we waited. We sat in the hospital and waited by my grandma's side. She held on for so long, 2 more weeks to be exact. The doctors gave her pain meds through her IV, and she fell into a coma. I'll never forget the gurgling sound her body made in her last hours. I knew she could hear us because when we spoke to her, she would gurgle. That's how we knew her time was near. It was a response of some kind. I saw for myself that people in a coma can hear you. A minister arrived and gave her last rites. My grandma had been right when she said she would fight until the very end. She woke momentarily from the coma and said, "Someone please let me out of here. I want to go home." But she didn't ever go home. A few days later, I sat in the hospital lobby watching TV, and my mom came to get me. It was time. Grandma had slipped back into a coma. We formed a circle around her and sang. One of the nurses started crying and told us she'd never heard a family sing to a dying loved one before. But we wanted Grandma to know we were there. She always loved to hear her children sing. We wanted to ease her journey into the other side. We wanted her to feel the love all around her as she left us. We sang "Jesus Loves Me," one of her favorite songs, and waited. Her breathing grew shallow. My mama took her hand. "Go ahead and rest," she told Grandma. "You can let go. It's okay." My grandma took one long final deep breath, and she was gone. I could feel her leaving. One moment she was there, and then she wasn't. It was a hard time for me. I was just coming to grips with my own illness and finally having a legitimate diagnosis, and now I had to say goodbye to a woman who had helped to shape my life. The loss was profound. I ached inside. I regretted that she never got to hear fan mail, which we essentially finished by the time she died. I regretted that she wouldn't be there for the rest of my life and for the rest of my career. And she would never see me have the kids I hoped I'd have and grow older. I knew how close my own mom was to her mother, and seeing my mom in pain was hard. I saw what sickness could do to the human body and how much pain it could cause everyone around you. It made me want to fight harder, to empower myself even more. Pain is pain, my grandma had said, and it affects everyone in some way. I wanted to be stronger now. I wanted to push through my pain, like she had. When I look back now, I think that God has spared my life because I am supposed to help people with my story. I can be a walking testimony of strength and power, and I can decide not to be afraid, just like my grandma. 10 years ago, I got small tattoos on my hands, a heart, because there's nothing stronger than the love in a mother's heart, and 2 butterfly wings. I've always associated my disease with butterflies. They start out ugly and cocooned, but later they grow and fly free, and it's beautiful. I got the tattoos as a reminder so I could look down at my hands anytime I got upset, down, or scared. They remind me of the work my hands and my body have to do and why I'm supposed to stay here. I've got people to inspire. I've got music to make. I've got things to do. I won't stop until one day I wake up and the doctor tells me, "Girl, you ain't got cooties no more." Chapter 7. The Battle Within. We rode high on the success of Crazy Sexy Cool, but it was a lot of pressure too. We knew we needed a follow-up album that was as good. I never try to outdo the last hit, just to make more hits. Songs like Waterfalls are hard to come by, so every time you make an album, it's a lot of pressure. It doesn't get easier just because you know what you're doing or you've been in the studio before. You have to keep evolving and getting better every time. One thing I always try to keep in the back of my head is to aim for an album like Thriller. It had 9 consecutive hits, so I make that my goal. You want to get at least 2 or 3 hits on one album to make it worthwhile and to give it longevity. As we started writing new music, there was tension in the band between me, Chili, and Lisa. I could feel things slowly starting to crack around us. My perfect career was not as seamless as it appeared from the outside. Lisa started talking badly about TLC, but mostly about the people we were working with, to anyone who listened. She talked to everyone but the people involved. If we ever sat down to talk to each other honestly, it had to be at the right time. But it was never the right time because Lisa's then boyfriend was always in her ear. She had issues with Dallas too, which she was vocal about. "I want to say something without saying too much," Lisa said on camera at one point. "I'm just going to be honest with everybody." She told the press that Dallas had charged us too much money to record some songs in the past, so he might not be on the project, she added. "We've been fighting with Dallas for about 10 months. She always felt like she had to tell it like it was, no matter how it looked." We needed to deliver this third album. It wasn't up for negotiation, and we didn't have time for this drama. We had the idea to make a collection of songs that was dedicated to our fans. It could be their album and their songs. Much of our fan mail never got answered, and a lot of fans were upset because they wanted us to reply back to them. We were never able to get around to each and every one of them. It wasn't like today with Twitter. These were actual letters. Usually, you hire a company to reply to your fan mail on your behalf. We used to read as many as we could and reply to them ourselves, but that required more time than our schedule would allow. So the best way to give our thanks to the listeners was to put their names inside the CD jacket for the album. We called it fan mail. Lisa was always awesome with album titles. She did it again here. Our art director had a photo of Naomi Campbell, painted silver, and that picture inspired me to have us look like space cadets on our album cover.
This is the end of the CD. The audiobook continues on the next CD.